So, first of all, welcome. It's an honor to be able to interview a former congressperson. Um, so, I guess my first question is, obviously, you were in Congress for a time. So, what do you make of where we are as a party and as just as a country right now in our current mess? I think that I think we can all agree that no matter what we think of the Democratic Party, what the GOP is doing is way worse and much more dangerous. And
Right.
we'll get to the Democratic Party in a second. But what do you think about where we are as a country and the upcoming elections?
Well, here's the interesting part of where we're at. I think that we're in a better position right this second than we have been in the last year. So let's be grateful for that, right? Um, we have a real strong narrative here is that the GOP in Congress and President Trump have given us no solutions. They haven't kept any of their commitments, and the level of polarization and divisiveness in this country is like we've never seen before. It's most historians would say it's near what it was before the Civil War. So we are at that precipice. I also, simultaneous having said that, President Trump is at historically low numbers, not just low for him. He's hovering around the aggregate poll, approval poll is right around, I think, 34%. And so that's very telling. And being at that point at only 11 months in, that's rough. So that is
Yeah.
all to say we have a huge opportunity and we've had some huge wins. November 4th, winning by double digits in almost every race we were in. Amazing. Women in executive positions, amazing. Boycotts working. The shutdown strategy worked. Independents are with us 1000%. So
Yeah.
we're on a good trajectory. We have to keep working hard.
I would agree with that. Also, for people that are just joining, I am interviewing former Illinois Congresswoman Marie Newman. Um, and so obviously we saw yesterday. Yesterday. Miami flipped for the first time in 3 decades, which was a big, like, I'm not surprised because I had heard that she was likely to win
Yeah.
based on, but I was surprised by a margin of 20 points.
Amazing.
Like, that's a big thing. It gives me hope for potentially beating Senator Ashley Moody next year in Florida if we put up a good candidate.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm still apprehensive about saying that we're going to win the Senate because I think it's a huge. We have a very difficult map in 2026 for the Senate. I think the House can be easier to win, but especially given how Mike Johnson seems to not be able to not impress anyone, Democrats and
Right.
Republicans alike. Like, we've now had multiple members of Congress. I think both Nancy Mace and Marcia Taylor Greene say that Nancy Pelosi was one of our best speakers ever on both sides of the aisle because she was, even if they disagree with her policy, which obviously these two Republicans do, they're like, she was effective at corralling people and getting the agenda that Democrats were elected to do done to the best of her ability, in the House at least.
Look, she counted votes better than anybody else. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you. Yeah. And she was both maternal and ruthless in the same cup of tea.
I think that's one thing that Democrats have struggled with in the past, but also have been improving on in the last 10 to 11 months is not willing to fight fire with fire. Like, obviously, you see it with Gavin Newsom in California. You're seeing it with others. You're seeing it with J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, obviously. Great presidential candidate. From your state. There's a lot of great presidential candidates, and we'll get to that. But I think that are there any things that you think that Democrats aren't doing that they should be doing, or anything that they are doing that they shouldn't be doing? And those are obviously two very important questions.
Sure. Good things. Well, first of all, it is sticking with it, right? And continuing to get people to understand that this is a lifestyle, not a diet, right? Is that we have to exercise this muscle every week, but make sure we don't wear ourselves out. It's a very interesting kind of combination of things. So, and most importantly, what I think we have learned, and everybody has to do, a good portion of the Democratic caucus in Congress has learned, wow, stories work, actually. The old-fashioned telling um, a constituent to talk about their story is really important, because
Yeah.
what we know about MAGA and independents is they don't want to hear a bunch of data points and policy. In fact, I'm coaching 8 congressional candidates right now, and I said, strike everything, the word policy from your lips. Do not say it. There are problems and solutions, and that's all you should
Yeah.
be talking about.
Agreed. I think that's one thing that I think that whether you're MAGA or you are, the thing is, I don't think Trump. Now, I do not think there's a single thing that Trump is doing in terms of campaigning or leading that we should try to copy in any way. But I think that there are many examples of things he definitely doesn't talk in politician speak. For good or for bad. And I think mostly for bad. But like, there's a way to do it that in a way without sounding like a complete lunatic. And I think that you're seeing a lot of Democrats start to figure that out. I think I still have some stylistic differences with how Hakeem Jeffries has been speaker, but he is way better than I have seen from my other from my senator Chuck Schumer. I think that he's a decent senator. I think he's a decent senator in terms of legislative work, but I think as a leader, he struggles. And that's why not everyone's fit to be a leader. And that's not a knock on him. Not everyone can be a leader. Not everyone has to be a
It's
leader.
a horrible job. Being head of the Senate, whether you're the president, the majority leader, the minority leader, is a horrible job. It is a horrible job, and nobody wants it. And that's why Chuck's been in place so long, is because nobody really wants it, right? It is it is a thankless job, and
It really is.
speaker's not much better.
No, yeah, clearly. Because the thing is, I feel like there's a lot of talk right now about getting rid of Schumer as leader, and there's some talk less outward, but to get rid of Jeffries. I don't think that it's helpful. Like I'm open to having that conversation somewhat. Like it's good to have that conversation every 2 years when that conversation needs to be had. But I think that having it right now is detrimental to the unity that we need right now to beat the Republicans, because they're not things that, like, yeah, they're attacking Mike Johnson, but there's not like, but they're supposed to be. I think we should enjoy the fact that they're not united. Let's have a little bit of us not being in disarray for like one moment. Like I know that's what Democrats are sometimes known for, is the disarray and not always being united. But I think that we need to be united in this one moment because, for one,
I
I
think
don't
we
know.
have to be reflective of the populace. Right
Yeah,
now, what we used to call centrist voters, which actually don't exist. And so let's talk about the electorate for a hot minute.
yeah.
Centrists and moderates only exist in Congress, people in Congress. Independents, which is about 50 to 60% of the nation now, people don't understand that nobody cares about R or D anymore. No one gives a flying flip. Most people are independents now. And so 50 to 60% of the voting populace is an independent. That does not mean at all, in any data point ever, that they are centrists or moderates. They are independents that have a set of context that they work with every voting period. So they'll say, okay, this voting period, healthcare is very important to me. More than anything else, what independents don't like is they don't like chaos, but they do want real change, not incremental change. So they don't like being called centrists and moderates for a reason, because it suggests diluted, transformative change. So we have to start understanding who independents are in the country and understand that there is no such thing as a centrist or moderate voter. There are independents that have a mixed bag of things that they want. Like, interestingly, they may be pro-LGBTQ and pro-healthcare for all, but might be conservative financially, and they may want very conservative immigration reforms, or the reverse, right? So we have to understand how to talk to people, is that we talk about problems and solutions and stop labeling everyone.
Yes, I think that one thing that Democrats sometimes have fallen into, not sometimes, we keep falling into it time and time again, is identity, which is important, but it's not the things. We can't be running as we can't be running as, we should be running on policy, not ourselves. And I think that the thing is, I think that a lot of voters think that politicians are just selfish and self-centered. And when you run on identity, that only proves that point.
Yeah.
I think that you have to have a situation where, yes, identity matters. Like, for example, it's great. Like, is it great that the new mayor of Miami is the first female mayor of Miami? That's great. Is it what she ran on? Not even close. She never. I don't think she ever talked about, like, because it's obvious. Like you,
Yeah.
I think that I think you can. I think people can infer certain things up, like pushing things. Because like, why does that matter? Like, how is that necessarily going to impact? If I'm for Medicare for all, why does it matter that I'm this identity, this identity, this identity? It's only going to create a situation where the Republicans, which love to create those divisions among different cultures and different identities, it's only going to make that big of an issue and make it more easy for you to have to answer for a dumb cultural issue that doesn't really matter because just.
I agree. So what we need to help our Congress people and our consultants, because there's a lot of them out there, that is stop using the word centrist and moderate, and stop saying that what the populace, the electorate wants is a centrist or a moderate. Those don't exist, and it's the wrong frame. People want solutions to problems. So again, you're right. Let's run on issues, not on a label. So every single member of Congress that says they're a centrist or a moderate and that people will like me and all candidates should be, that is insane. It really is true that all politics is local. So in Florida, I'm sure Mayor-elect Higgins ran on local issues, and she talked about issues all the time. The reason that Mamdani won is that there was a series of issues in New York, and MAGA people, what we used to call centrists, independents, and Democrats and Democratic Socialists all voted for him because he is going to solve problems, right? In New Jersey, same thing. My friend Mickey Sherrill, she won because she talked about job issues, right? So let's talk about the issues that are important to the public, and let's talk about solutions. Stop. The centrists in Congress need to stop talking about centrism and moderate folks. They don't exist.
I would agree with that. I think that like there's like personally, like whenever I'm asked what I consider myself as under the Democratic label, first of all, I don't really like answer that question for the exact thing you just said. But like when I'm pressed on it, I'm like, I am a pragmatic progressive because I'm like yes, like you're not always going to get all you want. That's part of dealing with a Congress and different people of different things from all across America. Like you can, like I have issues. Obviously, I had issues with Joe Manchin and his. But the thing is, he's also a Democrat in West Virginia. Like you're gonna have people like that. You're gonna have John Fetterman, and then you're also gonna have AOCs and Mamdani, and you're gonna negotiate with all of those people to get stuff done. So I'm okay with. But the thing is, the goal should be to get your goals. And then you negotiate down from there. I feel like a lot of times when Democrats talk about issues, they already are negotiating on the campaign trail down while they're just talking about their goals. And then when they get to Congress, they're starting from the halfway point from where they actually want to be, and then they get almost nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that negotiating should be for Congress, not for the campaign trail as much. I think that we saw an issue with Kamala Harris. Like, obviously, there was a lot of things I liked about her as a candidate, but she did not. Sometimes there was lack of clarity on what she actually wanted to get done versus what she felt she could get done in terms of what she needed to say to win in various states. And then those states obviously didn't vote for her because they felt like, what do you actually want to do versus what does your endorsers want you to do?
I don't fault anybody in that mix, right? Is that she had only 3 months to run. She worked really hard. Her team worked really hard. We were put in a difficult position. Joe Biden probably should have never run for re-election. We should have understood how to talk to this populace in terms of problems and solutions and acknowledge the problems better. There is no blame for anyone. And it's a very silly use of time to blame anyone. What we do know now, though, is that we are a independent first country, and we have to accept that. So the Democratic Party has to understand we have to talk about problems and solutions, not about labels or who did what, when, where, and how. Is that
I
what are we going to do to fix things moving forward? Period.
I fully agree with you because I think that we see a situation where, like, you have some people that's like, I think it was Clyburn and Michelle Obama that said America's just not ready for a woman president, and then you have other people that say they're not ready. Like Kamala Harris in a book saying that, oh, I didn't pick Pete Buttigieg as my vice presidential candidate because I didn't think America was ready for a black woman and a gay man on ticket.
Mhm.
And you see all these different things about like worries about like focusing on the identity of the people that they are nominating or not nominating. And again, I think that that's not focusing on the policies that they are not. And I'm not blaming, but I think that
I think that she made that statement as I think some of this was confessional, right? Is that it was
yeah,
saying the things that were the subtext. And I think what she was trying to do there is that we have to recognize in this country that there are lots of misogynists, there are a lot of racists, and there are a lot of bigots that are homophobes, right? And she was admitting that she factored that into her decisions, and I think that's those are things that are accurate. Is it how I would my decision-making tree would work differently? But I think she was just confessing that's what I was thinking, and being that open and transparent, I think is a very powerful thing.
I would agree. So obviously, we're seeing a situation where in 2026 we see a huge battle between the some people frame it as the two different factions of the party.
Mhm.
I personally see it as more of like a will you fight or are you more establishment? Some people just see it as like a young, old, depends on who you ask. Um, you have Maine where you have Grant Plattner versus Janet Mills.
Mhm.
Obviously that's complicated given some things that have come out about Grant Plattner. It's not as clean cut about that than one would want. You have Justin Crockett just entered the race in Texas. And like so you have other things like that. How do you think that we should be thinking about these nominees in terms of I think a primary is always good in relative
Mhm.
in most cases it's better
Mhm.
because it sharpens whoever the candidate, assuming they don't go negative.
Yeah.
Um, and that is my worry because I think that you already are seeing people like Graham Plattner attack
Mhm.
Mills and the other way around and saying that with we've not seen Crockett or Talarico attack each other, which is good, but
Yeah.
also he just entered the race 2 days ago, so it's not a lot of time yet. I personally prefer Talarico just because I think that he can has a better chance of winning over the cross appeal of Texans that voted for Trump and voted for other Republicans. But it's gonna be an interesting race to see how it all happens. Um, but so how do you think we should be thinking about primaries in terms of not primary members, but like just primaries in general for the Senate and the House?
I think we should be supporting um, our own values. So, in other words, this country is in. I just wrote this in my Substack column this morning. Is that we are in the second Gilded Age. We have a nation of haves and have-nots now,
Yeah.
and it's getting worse and worse. So what we need is a fighter in every single race that understands that affordability is not a column of policies. It is embedded into everything. It is part of our housing dilemma. It is part of our everyday needs, groceries. It is part of our healthcare dilemma. It is part of our tax dilemma. It is part of everything. So affordability should be and willing to find real solutions, people that will champion going after big corporations for price gouging, people that understand Medicare for all and understand we're the only nation out of the top 33 nations. 32 other nations have Medicare for all, some version of single payer. And that we can do that, and it is doable soon. So, these are the things that the candidates have to understand that 62% of this nation wants single payer Medicare for all. There's not one other thing on the planet that this country agrees on. That's so
That's
the
very
fact
true.
that we have corporate Democrats that are not pushing that is a problem. So for me, when people come to me for my endorsement, I'll say, I have very strict rules. So if I'm going to endorse you, you have to have a huge affordability platform that is embedded across housing, healthcare, everyday needs, and everybody's everyday quality of life. And you have to understand single payer and how it can be put forth and the 20 different versions that could be put forth and via Medicare for all. And you have to understand that your number one job is to make Americans' lives better and make them more secure and safe and happy, right? That's your job. If you are not willing to fight for those things and have it be transformational, I really don't have any interest in you. And then, and then from a foreign relations perspective, if you can't say the word genocide, that's a problem. So you need to be able to say that. And you need to be able to support the Block the Bombs bill and several others. So for me, it has to be that you're going to fight for everybody's rights and you're going to fight for equity in this country.
I see what you're saying there. I think that one I think sometimes I think I would agree with most of that. I think that we have a situation where I think though sometimes, and then nothing this is what you would, but like I think sometimes when we talk about candidates, there's a element of, I wouldn't say purity because I think that has a negative connotation, but like it's like you have to support this, this, and this, and this.
Yeah.
And I think that I think what you're talking about is more like basic themes of how candidates should think about, not necessarily like this.
In your local, so it doesn't matter what I think. All that matters is what does your voting population and your constituency need? So if you're a congressional candidate, you should be looking at the 750,000 people in your district and what do they need? And that should be your platform. It's really simple.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest issues that we've had is that the nationalization of these races, or the attempts to nationalize races, has made it a lot harder for both parties, frankly, to talk about issues, because it's like, wait, do I talk about this local bridge that fell, or do I talk about this cultural issue that Republicans keep wanting to talk about? For example, trans people. That seems to be Republicans' favorite obsession right now over the last 5 years. And that actually gets me to my next thing. We've seen a lot of posturing, and that's normal for 2028 candidates. We've seen shifts within the last 10 months, back and forth on what these candidates think and what they talk about and how they frame things. Who are your top people in terms of who do you want that seems to be likely going to be running for 2028?
So who do I see that they're putting feelers out there that both behind the scenes and in front of the camera? Obviously Gavin Newsom is running, J.B. Pritzker's running, Jeff Shapiro's running, maybe Gretchen Whitmer. In terms of senators, maybe Chris Murphy, maybe Cory Booker. Pete Buttigieg is definitely running. He's made that clear. I could see members of Congress. I think Ro Khanna may get in.
He seems likely to be getting in. Yeah.
And then a few others, a handful of others. But and then there's probably going to be some billionaire that thinks it's important that he get in, because it will be a he, and it will be someone that thinks that they're special. And so, the race will be, I still think that the number one criteria, are you going to fight? Because what we haven't seen from the Democrats in a long time is the willingness to fight and the willingness to have bold answers. And the reason FDR was in place for as long as he was, for 16 years, 12 years, is because he was willing to fight and he was willing to transform, and then he executed. So we have to have someone that's willing to do that and that demonstrates they're a fighter in their posture and their deed, right?
I think that if you look at the Democratic bench of the people that seem to be likely to run, most of them are governors. I think that is not accidental. I think that because they have to, they have no choice but to govern, because they have to work with the legislature. They have to balance the budget. They have to do all these different things. They have to work across the aisle.
And by the way, that's a good thing. We should have people that have been in executive positions running, right? That's a positive.
I think we have a really deep bench of amazing candidates. I think that no matter who the nominee is, of the likely people that are going to be nominee, we'll have a great nominee. I think we'll beat whoever Republicans decide to put up in 2028. I personally, my top person right now is, I really like Andy Bashir. I really think he does a really good job of talking to the so-called, I think he has a really good relationship with the so-called centrist members of Congress, even though we've agreed that there's not a lot of centrist voters, but the people that he does really well with the establishment, but he also does really well with progressives. And I think that that's a really good balance, because I think whoever you put up, you have to make sure that they're not turning away parts of the Democratic faction. We obviously saw we saw fall in Democratic support over foreign policy disagreements back in 2024.
Mhm.
And I think that wherever you fall, I think that we've seen that that led to a much worse result for the Middle East with the result that happened with Trump winning. There
I'm
would
not
be
sure. On that front, I think that was bound and determined to be bad. I don't know as though on just that topic it would have been any different with any, because it's a very, what we don't understand as Americans is that we have less control than we think we do on either side. But we have lots of control in terms of how we convey our sentiments about the situation. So neither candidate, Kamala wasn't willing to identify it as a genocide. Trump didn't either. Would we have put pressure on Netanyahu if Kamala was in place? I don't know that. So look, there are tons of awful things going on. So, Kamala would have been great on the
yeah.
economy, great on all the other things, right? I'm just saying on that particular issue, it probably would have been the same result. I'm just telling you, unless we had a candidate that was full on human rights. And she was not. And look, I voted for her and I supported her, but she was not.
But I think that, but the thing is, we have a lot of great candidates, and I think that, like, I like Bashir. I think I just heard Josh Shapiro speak last night at the National Cathedral. He's obviously going to run. I don't know exactly the situation where he stands polling wise. I think that I've not been looking at the polling much because it's 3 years out. These people haven't announced, so people haven't really.
Yeah, it's silly to kind of think about it right now. I mean, if I'm being honest about my perspective, is that let all these people, say their piece and do their things and do a good job and fight hard. And I'll worry about it probably in early 27.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm kind of like looking at things and just like, okay, well, because obviously I'm going to be graduating from college under my undergrad in 2027, so I'm obviously going to try to see if a campaign can hire me. But so the thing is, I think we have a lot of great candidates. Deep bench.
Absolutely.
We have some amazing 2026 candidates that are just amazing. We have a lot of teachers, a lot of doctors, a lot of veterans. Very similar to the 2006 and 2018 playbook when we crushed Republicans. So I like that. Obviously, I think that
They need to throw those playbooks out. Those playbooks do not work. We should not do anything we did in 18, 20, or 24, or 22 or 24. Those are all wrong.
but my point is, I'm like, I think you can't run the same playbook no matter what year it is again. But I think that in terms of the
We have an
candidates,
entirely different dynamic in the nation right now. So it has to be fighter and solver. And it's that simple. And we have to understand the only person that has to worry about national issues is the presidential nominees, right? The rest of them should run on their state or local policies and call it a day. And there's problems and there's solutions, and you have to have solutions.
and I think that you see, like, with these veterans, teachers, doctors, all these more working class people, partially because they know the problems, because they're the ones dealing with it every day, because they're working class Americans.
They're workers or working families. We don't say we don't use the term class. We use workers and working families because it's much more respectful.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But the thing is, you have these people that have to make these decisions because they're the ones living through the decisions made by Congress people and senators and presidents. So they know what the problems are because they're living them, and they know at least what they believe the solutions are. And I think that that's why you're seeing a lot more of them run, and that's why no matter what the playbook is in terms of how you talk about different things in each election, which obviously changes, why no matter what, those candidates seem to be able to transcend every election, no matter what the playbook ever is in that election. I think that you're seeing amazing leadership in terms of Ken Martin and his delegation to building state parties up again. Obviously, you have Nikki Fried in Florida making an amazing party from pretty much the ground up, where she has to rebuild the party. I think. Now, I'm not saying every state party chair is amazing. I'm from New York, so I have Jay Jacobs as my chair, and I'm not a fan of him. There's not a lot of people that are in the state, but he seems to be able to stick around because he is able to scare enough of the establishment that seems to keep winning. But I think that there are like a lot of great chairs in this country. Anderson Clayton in North Carolina is an amazing chair.
Yeah, she definitely seems like she's has a good grasp on what the new electorate looks like. And that's
Yes,
really, my criteria is that. And while I think Ken has done a nice job nationally of understanding we have to talk to, because we haven't talked to rural voters in 25 years, and this party has got to start talking to rural voters.
yes.
We have lost them entirely, and that is not only immoral, it's wrong and stupid strategically.
Well,
So
the
I
thing is,
think he understands that.
as someone who comes from rural America, like I think that is often what happens is like people automatically assume, oh, because they have consistently modern dimes because Democrats haven't addressed them in the same way that they have addressed other regions. Oh, they're Republican areas. No one even trying. Or the thing is, oh, they're all like just because they're Republican or just because they're rural, they must all be racist. That's now granted. There's racists everywhere, city or suburban, rural, and there are some out there. But the thing is, and like yes, they might be more Republican on the issue of guns. But we don't need them to agree with us on every issue to still talk to them and get their votes. Like if you look at there's several members of Congress from my area, which obviously represent rural areas, that are Democrats that won by like 5 to 10 points. John Mannion and Josh Riley in New York. You see that obviously with people like John Tester. Obviously, unfortunately, he lost in 2024, which was an unfortunate victory. But things he was someone that obviously had to talk to rural people because that's the only way he won.
That's
And as long as he did, and I think that he lost because it's still Montana, and there was huge shifts. You had a Republican more so year in a way that people did not expect the length of how big that Republican year would be.
right.
The Senate was not expected to go blue. We were expecting that to flip in most cases, because you had you had to defend Tester, you had to defend Sherrod Brown, Ohio, who I actually think will win in 2026.
Let's hope.
I think he has a shot. I think he has a real shot in the current environment, and because again, that's someone who knows how to fight for working people.
Yeah, he does.
That's
He understands how to talk about problems and solutions instead of telling everybody that they're this bucket or this label or this category. So he's great. He really is great at that. And I think that he'll have a very much a fighting chance this time. So let's all pray.
I think I think the most unexpected Republican victory in 2024 in terms of the Senate was Pennsylvania. I think that surprised a lot of people. I think that people weren't surprised about Ohio, Montana, West Virginia. I thought Sherrod Brown was going to win, but I thought that, but I'm not like, it was not like, it was like, oh, that's completely unexpected. Pennsylvania was more unexpected because Casey was very popular, or at least I thought he was, and he lost.
I
Obviously,
think it is symptomatic of we started seeing that people did not want the old guard part of the elected official set moving forward. So I think that it was the beginning of the old guard versus the new guard, and we're seeing that a lot in this race. In fact, I have a whole series doing that on my radio show where I bring in new guard candidates, and it has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with how you think about policy, and that we have to be new, innovative, creative, and transformative. We can no longer be incrementalist because we're going to have to reverse. Look, when we get back in power, we're going to have to reverse the Medicaid cuts. We're going to have to build back up our healthcare system. We are going to have to replace some old federal agencies that have been completely decimated. Now, that doesn't mean replace them with the same. That means replace them with something much better and different. But this the new guard that's coming in absolutely has to come with innovative ideas. And when I see these, what they call themselves centrist and moderate Democrats saying that, oh, we're going to move this little inch, that is not going to cut it at all.
Oh, I think that like obviously I think that I like that you address the fact that age is not like
nothing to do with it. Yeah, I mean, I have people in my new guard slate that are 65 years old. It has nothing to do with age.
I just feel like that's so often the conversation that's been had, partially because of Joe Biden and that whole saga. But I think that there's a difference between having Joe Biden, like look at Bernie Sanders. Like obviously, do I think he should be running for re-election? Probably not. But I still think he's quite
contributes. He's very acute and
and
and all the things, right? But yeah,
certainly
Joe
not
was not. Joe had deteriorated, and we should have, as a team, said, "Look, sir, you have been amazing, and thank you so much." and then said, let's open up the primary. We should have done that for sure. And a lot of people were saying that. It's just that they were shut down. So we are where we are.
I'm not opposed, like for them on Maine, I'm not opposed to Janet Mills because she's 77.
Yeah.
I'm not even opposed to her as a nominee. I think that that's a really weird primary given the scandals you're seeing with Graham Flatner. I don't think Graham Flatner is a communist or a Nazi. I think he had some really unfortunate scandals that I don't know if I want to have my nominee have against a person like Collins who seems to be able to defy the odds no matter how, despite the claim that she's a moderate when she just votes with Trump 99% of the time. I don't think that if you really want to put someone that's already has baggage. I don't know. I think Mills' hardest issue is getting through the primary, but if she can do that, I think she wins the general. I do in this current environment.
Yeah.
But I think that in terms of, I think that we just have an issue where like we focus so much on like these like little fights, like, oh, it's age. No, it's like this exact like identity. It's like all these different like little elements. I'm like, that's not the thing you should be focused. Again, policy. Like, what do you think about like? Do you think the divide is more based on right versus left, or is it more top versus down? I think that is sometimes.
I think that it is very clear. Again, folks under 52 could care less if you are a Republican or a Democrat. They just don't care. They care about these top three problems. Affordability, healthcare, and name whatever it is in your area, housing, whatever. And, my local problems are this, and this is what I'm worried about. Are you going to solve it? I don't care if you are a green party, purple party, orange party, red party, blue party, whatever you are. Like, you just need to solve my problem. So the frame has to be, we are going to be going after these elitists and these oligarchs and solving the problem of inequity in this country. And that has to be our North Star at all times. It can't be, there is no right or left anymore. There is no, because even MAGA people, they have this weird mixed bag of populism and socialism. And, it's a weird bag. So stop worrying about right or left. It's not a frame anymore.
Like, this is the party that, like, had, like, obviously, 1 second that Trump's meeting with the Nick Fuentes, and then the next second he's meeting with Zohran Mamdani and praising him and, like, talking about how great he is. And I'm like, and everyone's like, oh, well, how does this make sense? And I don't understand why Democrats still have not understood this now. We're 10 years into this mess that we have. Nothing. Stop trying to make sense of Trump and his fellow. I know people don't like it when people say this, but frankly, Nazis, like his little Nazi conglomerate in his little cabinet, and it's like they're not. This is not an ideological administration. This is not an ideological regime. This is how can we hurt the most people and help the people closest to us, the donors, ourselves, and all this different stuff. Like, I think that it's more about, and also Mamdani's popular. Trump wants to be popular, so he's trying to attach himself to the popular guy.
Yeah.
The thing
it really is. Hey, Eli, I think I told you I have a hard stop coming up. So let's do, if you have one more question, I'm glad to answer that. And then I do have to go on to the next podcast. So
yeah, I was wondering, obviously we saw a few weeks, it's a month ago, your fellow colleague, Chuy Garcia announced that he was retiring. And then we saw backlash and obviously some support to his way that he orchestrated that resignation, retirement, and then got his chief of staff to have the primary all to herself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that maneuver as a person obviously in Illinois and as a member of Congress who worked with Chuy?
Right. So as you likely know, Chuy had several family issues, and his health is at risk, right? So he had known about that stuff and was working through all those things, and it all came to a cusp right around the time at the end of the petition period. So he definitely made a good decision for his family. So that's two things can be true at once. Good decision for his family. Was it a democratically run process? No, I disagree with how that was run. Is it fair for independents to now get into the election cycle and fight hard against the preordained Democrat? Yeah, I think that's fair. And honestly, I'm in that district. I vote in that district. I'm going to meet with all of the candidates and hear all of them.
Yeah, yeah. I think
But
no
I
one's
do think it's fair that these independents are popping up and challenging the Democratic candidate because it was not democratic how she came in. Now, she may be an amazing candidate. I have
yeah.
no idea.
Because I think that I think that like Marie Perez, who obviously issued a
Mhm,
disapproval resolution, which obviously upsets a lot of Democrats, but she was like, I get it. Like, prioritize your family. That makes sense. I don't have an issue with you retiring. Like, that makes sense for you and your family. And I'm sorry that
mhm,
you're going through these health issues with you and your family. But the
right.
way that it got orchestrated was not proper. And I think that that was the main argument. And so I think that that was my last question was, and so first of all, again, thank you for joining.
Be with
Obviously,
you.
I urge everyone to subscribe to your Substack, and I enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks, you too.